All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. This is one of those webcasts I like to think goes better in person, but we are stuck with this for a while, so it is what it is. So, like I said, like Jason said, if you've got questions or comments, feel free to hit them up in the Discord or the chat here. Again, real quick, my name is Tim Medin. I run my own company. We do pen testing. I do pen tests a lot. I'm an author with SANS. I'm the lead author, actually, of the 560 pen testing course. And I also teach the advanced pen testing course, IANS faculty, a bunch of other random crap nobody cares about. Skip past this. If you are watching it at home, let's get rolling. So it's important when people ask me all the time when I'm teaching my classes, like, hey, what does it take to go to that sort of next level, or what recommendations do you have? And I give them some. They sound sort of cheesy, and frankly, maybe they are. I don't know. But so much of the cool things that I end up finding, and frankly, the people that I talk to, are just around trying simple and dumb things. Everyone wants to take this sort of their advanced exploitation and start off with, exploiting Windows 10 with all the protections, with all the protections in place, and writing a ROP chain. It's like, you know what? There's a lot of other stuff that's out there. So my recommendation always is be lazy. Try the dead simple stuff first, right? Try that simple stuff. And the reason is the real APT, the true APT, that's what they're doing, right? I mean, if you think about it, right, the real APT, they're not going to tip their hand. They're not going to tell you, and reveal their latest and greatest 0-day if they don't need to, right? That's going to be an absolute waste. They're going to try the simplest way in first, because if they're using the same exploit code, same tools, same techniques as everybody else, good luck with attribution, right? And counter to every single news article that you read, it's not always this APT, right? Every single news article that you read, that someone is being attacked by APT, right? The advanced persistent threat is after them, whether it actually, of course, is or not, right? That is not going to be always the case. Try some of those dead simple things first, because they're oftentimes going to work. One of my favorites sort of related to this is Apple was breached. Gosh, this was about a year ago now, right? Maybe a year ago. Apple was breached, and they traced it back, and they found it was a 16-year-old kid in his parents' basement in Australia who had breached Apple. And they went into his house, grabbed his computer, and they found all the Apple files in a directory called Hacky Hack Hack. In fact, we made a shirt that says "Make Dir Hacky Hack Hack" because we sort of want that throwback to not to encourage that or condone that kind of activity, but look, you don't have to be that super advanced, what everyone thinks it's a 16-year-old kid at home doing these sorts of things, right? Try this dead simple stuff first. Let's talk through a case study. And I sort of hate to beat this up, but it is a fantastic case study, right? We've all heard of the Equifax breach, right? Equifax was breached. Let's walk through a little bit of the timeline. So the timeline here was March 10th, 2017, so 3 years ago-ish, this vulnerability related to Apache Struts was announced, right? So the vulnerabilities were announced March 10th. At this point, everyone's got patches. Now, I am by no means saying that patching is something that we can just flippantly say, hey, let's patch everything, because there's much more difficulty with that. What happens, though, is in May, right, we got April, 2 months later, they're breached, right? 2+ months later, the breach happens. Equifax is breached, right? This is a known vulnerability. So this breach happened with off-the-shelf code. This wasn't brand new 0-day. This wasn't anything necessarily from a super advanced threat actor. It was that dead simple. Right? And then, of course, sort of the follow-up pieces, the detection was significantly later, just disclosure of and what was even later after that. So the key here is, again, the dead simple stuff sort of works. So try some of that, and frankly, embrace that, right? We don't have to write our own custom 0-day for every single pen test, every single hack, because frankly, it just works. It's just dead simple, right? This APT that breached them was not really persistent, right? They had 2 months between when that vulnerability was discovered and when the breach happens. Is that persistent? Not really, right? It's off-the-shelf code. Is that even advanced? Not really. Now off of APT, we have now trimmed that down, right? We've taken the A and the P down, and we're left with just T, right? Of course, that doesn't sound quite as good in the news. Some other kind of fun ones. So one of the things that I did is I asked a bunch of really smart people that I knew, and I asked them, like, what are some of the dead simplest, some of the stupidest things that have worked and led to a breach in one way, shape, or form, or helped you in your pen test. So one of my favorites here, I love this one. So Derek Banks of Black Hills, good friend of mine, he had access to a Windows system. And on that Windows system, what he was trying to do is download a netcat, because he needed to move some files and he wanted netcat. Now, someone in the chat here pointed out I misspelled things. That's going to happen a lot, for the record. Just going to say, I am not advanced persistent speller. I am terrible at that. Anyway, so he's trying to get netcat on his Windows host, and he pulled down netcat. And what happened was the antivirus or the EDR or whatever you want to call it caught, right? And that file was then immediately deleted. So he's like, crud, I would really like to get this down. So he's like, you know what? Let me think this through. Now, how many of you used Nmap? Let's see, any Nmap folks here? Probably going to be a lot of you folks with Nmap, right? If you know, with Nmap, what comes with that is a tool called NCAT. NCAT is like Nmap, but frankly, even better. It gives you better capabilities and better features. Now, Nmap is a trusted piece of software. So what happened is he grabbed NCAT, pulled this sucker back, and it worked. And AV was like, hey, cool, this is totally fine. Right? So pulled it off using trusted software that works just like the bad software. I laughed so hard when he first told me that. Right? And of course, the bad passwords. I sort of hate to bring this up, but when I tweeted about this a month ago, feels like an eternity ago, I asked him, like, what is the dead simple, dumbest way you've seen people get in, right? The bad passwords, right? DA the same as the username. The domain admin, that's pretty impressive. One of my other favorites is 30% of the entire company with a password spray. If you're not familiar with that, with a password spray, you're going to try a few passwords with all of the various accounts. And then, of course, we've got the good old winter 2019, right? We take the season and year. And of course, people use that crap still because they have to change their password every 90 days. They have to change their password every 90 days because, as you'll remember, when Moses came down the mountain, he had a third tablet. And on that third, of course, that's definitely not true. That 90 days is just something that's been there forever, and people come up with schemes. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but these bad passwords over and over and over again. And we've gotten into organizations over and over and over again with our pen tests and red teams using these just terrible passwords. By the way, if you're a defender, suggestion for you, use a tool, use a shim, something. There's other ways to do this where you can ban passwords. You can actually do that with the Azure AD. If you're using some of that, you can ban some of these bad passwords so people don't do that. Another sort of a fun one here, kind of related, is Martin here found a letter, and on that letter had the welcome letter to an employee. On there was a password. I've seen that time and time again in organizations too, where you'll see that like orange 1, let's say, right? The fruit and or the color, right? Same thing, I guess. 1 And what people do is just change that letter, or welcome one, and they just keep changing that number over and over and over again. Another lovely one, test accounts, right? These test accounts, people leave them around like crazy. My favorite here is from Adam Baldwin. Adam's was just a simple test to see if it worked. Try to just hit ASDF to just show how the interface worked, and it worked, right? You've got to make sure that you clean a bunch of those things up, and dead simple, right? You don't have to go for this high-tech exploit, blah, 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 when these dead simple passwords work. In fact, I was doing a pen test one time, and there was an account that was a domain administrator that was the name of another pen test company. And I just tried it. I tried the password being the same as the username, and I tried it with a little bit of leet speak, and it worked. Now, the thing I felt crappy about is now I had to put this other company's name in the report because, I mean, this was the way that I got in, right? It was a bad password with this. I mean, it was a long company name, so technically the password was longer, but it was trivially easy to guess. So yeah, no, I won't name and shame that. Yeah, not the wisest move out there, right? Other great things, right? We look at the help, right? People love to get some of the help. We've seen a number of times other awesome sort of things. Dumberly things. One of my favorites here is from Kevin. Kevin's a dear friend of mine, fantastic gentleman. Went to the login form. The help screen told him the password, right? And you'll see all of these over and over again, where the screens tell you the password stored in the clear. How many of you have seen somebody doing with these news articles where they're in some sort of someone's server network, whatever, physically, and in the background is like a sticky note with someone's password? Gotta love some of those as well, right? More and more here, again, those same sorts of things. Another thing I've seen related to this very often, in fact, this whole screen here, is there's a misconception that in Active Directory, if I put the password, because I as admin might need it, if I put it in clear text in another attribute, no one can see that. In fact, I'll admit it. Like I will admit when I make my mistakes, because hopefully people will learn from that. When I was a junior admin many moons ago, I did this for some of the accounts because I put it in one of the fields in Active Directory because my assumption was it was safe. No one else had a way to read that. Of course, cringeworthy now, right? Definitely don't want to do that kind of stuff. Is this advanced? No. Does it work? Heck yes, it does, right? These simple sorts of things get us a lot of leverage, right? Here's another I love this story here. So one of the things I will recommend to you is look at other people's blog posts, look at other people's webcasts and stuff, and literally kind of try to recreate some of their steps and practice that way. It's like the piano, right? You're not going to sit down at the piano and write your own pieces. You learn how to play the piece that somebody else has written, and then maybe you get into that. So what happened is I had some friends, this was one specific person, and what happened in 2012 is he was like, you know what? I want to learn IoT. I want to learn how can I reverse engineer these IoT type devices and do fun, cool things. Right? So he wrote this blog post. The link there is at the top. So he grabbed the firmware. I'm just going to go through piece by piece here. Grabbed the firmware from a TrendNet camera. And again, this is a number of years ago now. And then used Binwalk. At the time, I had never used Binwalk. In fact, there's probably a bunch of you who have never used Binwalk. Cool, great time to learn it, right? What Binwalk does is it looks at a file, and it looks for specific headers. In this case here, we can see it found sort of three pieces. We've got essentially 0 to that 32320. We get the piece between those, and then the piece at the end. Now, the modern version of binwalk will actually do all the chopping for you. In this old version, we had to cut it up ourselves. So here was his example using DD to cut it up. So he cuts it up into various pieces. Now he just uses a built-in tool on Linux called file. And with file, what you can do is you can determine the file type. So he ran a file on the third file set, the third file that he created, that third chunk, and saw that there was a Linux file system. And he decompressed it and mounted it and started looking around. Cool. So we found this directory called server CGI bin Anani. Take a guess what Anani stands for, right? Anonymous. So now if you browse to this Anani CGI bin, sorry, Anani mjpeg.cgi, sorry, this is a screenshot from his things. I forgot there were swears on it. My bad. But you could access the camera, right? You could just access the camera. So when I'm like, you know what? I want to learn this. I want to try this exact same thing. So I went to Amazon. I bought another camera for $43. I looked it up. I forget. It was like $43.87. Got this camera, and I went through those exact same steps. Different camera, but the steps were pretty much the same. So grabbed the firmware. Cool. I can do that. Used binwalk, and then I used DD to chop this thing up, and it turns out there was also a Linux file system involved. Awesome. So I grabbed the Linux file system, started looking around, and where's one of the first files? I'm gonna throw this to the Discord channels and the chat. There's gonna be stuff all over the place on a Linux file system. If you get access to it, where is one of the first locations that you're going to look? Waiting for it. Come on, what's some interactivity? I need to talk to people. All of humanity is typing. That's awesome. Oh, he's talking about shirts. No answers. Wait. I'll give you a hint. It's a dead simple. Jeff McJunkin. All right, good winner there. So one of the first ones, Etsy password, right? First file I'm going to look at, Etsy password. Why? Where the credential information is. Now on modern Linux systems, the password hashes are not in Etsy password. They're in Etsy shadow. But in old Linux systems and brand new IoT type devices, what we end up with instead is they just put it all in the same file just to save. And in this case, it was encrypted with this brand new high-tech encryption algorithm called base64. So again, all I did was walk through these other simple steps that somebody else did with a completely different device, and I found Etsy password, and I found these credentials that were encrypted. By the way, base64, not encryption. So I decoded those, and I pulled up the web interface, and I looked in Etsy password, and I saw root. And I looked in the web interface, and there was root. And I looked in the password file, Etsy password, and there was viewer. And I looked in the web interface, and there was viewer. And I looked in that Etsy password once again, and I saw factory test. It wasn't in the web interface. So it was a backdoor account. So I found a backdoor account that was used for testing the camera. Now, dead simple, right? I followed somebody else's directions, someone else's instructions here on how to reverse engineer this firmware, and I found a backdoor account, right? Now, in my case, I ended up taking this and turning it around and selling it for, I think I got like $4,000 for it. So I followed somebody else's paint by numbers and got, a few grand, right? Nice. Other sort of dead simple fun stuff. This is another one that's sort of one of my favorites. Is again, try the simple stuff first. I'm going to throw this out to the chat, so get ready to start typing. I've got like all the chats open, clicking back and forth. All right, so I had, at the time, I had a, what was it? I think I had, oh, no. Okay, so I had my Apple TV, and I had the Amazon Prime streaming app. And this was the point in time when Apple and Amazon, they had this giant pissing match. Like they really didn't like each other because you used to be able to buy books in the Kindle app, but then Apple said you have to pay us 30%, and it turned into this giant pissing match back and forth. It was this giant mess, right? So, I'm paying for Amazon Prime. I am accessing content I have paid for. Now, I want to view it on my nice TV, right? So I open up the Amazon Prime app on my iPad, and I attempt to do the screen sharing, right? And it says, sorry, this feature is not allowed. I'm like, son of a, what the heck? I paid for this. I paid for the iPad. I paid for the TV. I paid for the Apple TV. I paid for Amazon Prime. Money everywhere, right? $4,000 spent on all this crap, and I can't do it. So I'm like, you know what? Let's take a look at this configuration. Let's just grab the traffic. So I look at the traffic coming to the Prime app, and inside the app, there's a line that says AirPlay enabled, and it says false. I was like, what? What? So the feature was there, but they turned it off, jerks, right? Frankly, just to spite all of the Apple people. So I was like, all right. So what do we do? What's the dead simple thing to do? Of course, change that option from AirPlay enabled false, change that to true. Now I get a signing error. It says the signature is invalid. So I look down at the bottom, and there's a signature at the bottom of the configuration. Dang it, right? Now, what's this dead simple next thing to do next? All right, give me a couple of suggestions in the various chats here. One channel's going crazy on wine. Copy the signature and paste it. I'm not quite sure what you mean there. Get a Roku. Nice. I like it. I spent all my $4,000 there, humanity, so I didn't have anything left. Yo, ethical hacker. Nice. Perfect. So the signature is there at the bottom. Why not just try to delete it, right? BB, nicely done as well. Just nuke it. So now the config comes down to the device. We change AirPlay enabled false to true. Delete the signature. The app gets the configuration, says, hey, let's check the signature. Oh, there's no signature. Oh, fair enough, carry on. And it worked just fine, which I thought was a little bit funny. One of the guys on my team, Mike is the breaker of MFA. Like, that guy makes multi-factor just cry. And we've seen this multiple times. It's literally happened this year, I think 2 or 3 times he's done it. So the normal process, right? Username, password, MFA token, logged in, right? So what he did is username, password, go to the page at the end, MFA's like, oh, you're at this page. The only way to get to this page is by authenticating. So fair enough, you're good to go, right? So lovely, right? Dead freaking simple. And it was funny when he did it. I'm like, I wouldn't even thought about doing something. It's too stupid, right? It's just too dumb. He starts just making these things cry. Fantastic stuff. And then my favorite bug of all time, right? My favorite flaw of all time here. So this MySQL bug, it's MySQL bug. It's a number of years old now, 8 years old at this time. So what happens is you authenticate to this, and I'm trying to get. I wish I could have been there when whoever figured it out, because I would love to have seen a look on their face. But you would authenticate to the SQL server, the MySQL server rather, and 1 out of 256 times, it's like, fair enough, you tried hard. I call this the soccer trophy vulnerability. It's like, good job, your team was terrible, but you tried hard. Here's your trophy. right? And the story that I've heard is somebody found this in like Nessus. Nessus said, hey, you've got a default credential here. And the person went back and was like, wait, this doesn't work. And then just got angry and scripted it up over and over and over again. It's like, nope, yep, totally works, right? So dead sort of simple, awesome stuff like that. And then there's a whole series. There's a ton of different responses to this. If you want to check some of those out, the link there, redsiege.com/simple-hack. If you want to go back and see the list of tweets that other people came up with, hilarity ensues. Okay, so let me talk through sort of another story. So this was a number of years ago, and I had never been to Black Hat. Right, I've always wanted to go to Black Hat. I have never been to Black Hat. I still have. Well, I haven't been to Black Hat. So I'm like, you know what? I want to go to Black Hat. So there was a contest. There was a contest where you could get a trip to Las Vegas. Now you had to pay for your own flights, but they paid for entrance to Black Hat, and they gave you a hotel room. And I'm like, I like these things. Right? I want to get into Black Hat for free. I'm already going to DEF CON. I get the free hotel, my flight and everything is all taken care of. I'm like, this is gold. This is exactly what I want. So I'm like, okay, cool. What do I need to do here? How can I be a ninja in 3 steps, right? So I'm like, all right, I need the most points. So how do we get our points? So step 1, install the software here. Step 2, we get points for doing different things with the software. Now I'm intentionally not showing this the software here. It was a quick little test thing that these people put up. It was not meant to be sort of production ready. Again, it was just a free, fun thing. So at no point, by the way, am I ripping on them in any way, shape, or form. I am actually very happy that they did this for me and they gave us this CTF. But I'm like, okay, cool. We get a bunch of points here. And I'm like, all right, I want to do this. Again, we're going to go interactive once again. Let's see how we can do this again here. So I log in, right? I install this in my device, and it sends information to the remote server, and I get 10 points, right? It's that registration, right? That first registration sends it to the server, 10 points. Cool. What's the next step? How do I get more points? Let me flip back and forth here between all of the various channels. Give me more Hobbit Seas. I think you're on the right track here. Right, so I see the first request. Now what? We got a little bit of a lag. The awkward silence. I'm gonna take a drink. This is vodka, by the way. Cheers, Corona. Way to go, Andrew Hale. Burp that connection. Even easier. So it sent the request to the server, and I think maybe this is what you're getting to, Andrew. It sent the request to the server, and I got 10 points. So just capture that in burp, and then play. Boom. It worked. Every single time we sent that request, we got 10 points. So I'm like, this is awesome. This is cool. So I had a friend of mine, Tim Tomes. And Tim Tomes, I happened to be talking to him about something else. We talk all the time. And I was talking to him, and I was like, hey, here's this cool contest. He's like, oh, cool. So we talked through it, and we're like, okay, let's just send this over and over again. And I had, a head start by 3 or 4 days, and I look back at the scoreboard, and now Tim's ahead of me. Tim is ahead of me on the scoreboard, and you're like, okay, so he's probably got a faster internet connection. So I spool mine up, and I, run like, 7 different sessions doing the same thing, and then I pass him, and then he does more, and he passes me, and we keep going back and forth, and I'm like running this on all sorts of cloud servers and all sorts of stuff like that. And we're just scoring points back and forth. And I remember this vividly. It was Mother's Day weekend a number of years ago, and I was set to pass him about 11:45 in the morning. We're at Mother's Day breakfast. It's about 11:30. He's doing something. I had just put it on a whole bunch of servers and got it going faster and faster and faster with a little trick we'll come back to in a little bit. But I got a text from him at about 11, I don't know, a couple minutes before I'm supposed to pass him. And the whole target service is offline. I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on? And I know at this point he is ahead of me, right? He's ahead of me at this point. Like, oh crap! So the server comes up a few hours later, and they come up with this tweet. And they say, hey, no more replay, no more replay. They're going to stop the replay. So I go back and I test and I send it, and I'm not getting any more points. And Tomes is ahead of me, and I'm competitive, and I'm like, dang it. I need to win this thing. All right, so I'm not that smart. So let's take a look. Let's take a look here. Here is the actual post that was sent to the target service. Right? So here's the post here. Right? What can we do with this information? Again, awkward silence while we wait for the lag. What can we do with the data we have here on the screen? I see a couple people typing. Oh, it's going to be a race. Oh, thought somebody had an answer, but then he's like, oh, I have to go finish a report. All right, see you, PSF. What do we got for answers here? Someone's got to have one. There we go. Base 64, decode this sucker. They're all coming in right now. So we got Andrew and Eric. So this is just base 64. So there's nothing sort of fancy here. It's kind of a dead giveaway that's base 64. This sort of blob here, our our data here. We see uppercase, we see lowercase, we see numbers. And the dead giveaway also is the equal sign at the end. So the uppercase, lowercase, and numbers is like screaming at you, this is base 64. The equal sign at the end is like punching you in the face saying, yes, this is base 64, decode me. Okay, cool. So now step 2. So now we have decoded this, right? So I've got something that looks like this. And we look at this and we see there's a ID here at the end, right? Down at the bottom, there's this Android ID. So we come back and I change this. So for example now, take the C, convert it to a D, who cares, right? Base 64 it back up, send it to the server, and now I get an error. And the error says invalid magic. Wrap. Right? So invalid magic. Well, what was that again? So if we look over here, there's two pieces, right? We've got our data here, and we've got our magic right up here. The magic in this case, what it appears is that it's some sort of checksum or signature or something like that. Right? So what the hell is this magic? I need to figure out what this magic is. So all we can do is, one of the beautiful things with Android apps is because it's bytecode, we can actually reverse this quite well. So we can open this up in any number of tools. I think I used JD GUI back in the days. I don't think I have that anymore. So I just took a screenshot from JADX. So open it up, search for magic inside of the code, and find this location. That's simple, right? That's not hard. I just simply search for that code. Good deal. Now here is the code. So there's my string equals magic. What I need to figure out is, like, where does this thing come from? Where does magic come from? So we see magic and stir are sort of bound together. This is a name value pair. So let's trace back stir and figure out where stir comes from. All right, so there's my stir. It's taking pieces of A2. So it's taking the fifth character. Remember, we count from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth character, and then the last 9 here. Okay? Where's A2 come from? Come up here. There's my A2. Now, we lose some of the function names here when we compile it, and we can use different obfuscation and such, but we lose those function names. So we've got A.A and a function G here, but it's using data B. The input to this function here is B. Where's B? B is our data. So we have found the path from B all the way back, from B, our data, all the way back to str, which is our magic, right? Something happens in that function at the top. Then we're going to take a couple of characters, and that is our magic, right? So let's take a look at that A.A. Here is my A.A. What the heck is going on here, right? Give me your gut feel. Don't try to run through this. Give me your gut feel on what exactly is happening here in this particular function. Let's see, wait for the Slacks, the Discords, whatever. What do we got here? So what is happening inside of this function, right? What's your sort of gut feel? Again, give me the simple answers here. This is not meant to be high tech where you've run through, I can manually compile Java in my head. If you could, you have a problem, see a doctor. We got here, see somebody typing. Yeah, great. Good point there. I'm going to completely screw up your handle there, Rigetto D. We see this, something in here says bad base 64. There's a 3, 4. What base 64 does is it takes 3 bytes and turns it into 4 bytes. Take a quick gut feel, and what this is doing is it's doing the signature based on base 64. It's just taking a base 64 once again. So it's taking the original data, which happens to be base 64 encoded already. It base 64 encodes it again in this function. It takes the fifth character and the last 9, combines it together, and creates our magic, right? I am now a sorcerer. I know where the magic comes from, and I can create my own magic, right? How awesome is this? So now what we can do is rewrite this. Now, a very important life skill is to remember, always find people smarter than you, right? I sort of deflect that I'm not very smart because I'm not that smart. I didn't think to shave before a webcast or even comb my hair, and I'm glad you can't see below the table. Right? Find smart friends. So again, I was talking to Tim Tomes, who fortunately is smarter than I am. Well played gift there. Oh, it is Dominic. Nice to see you, Dominic. So anyways, find smart friends. So Tim Tomes, my smart friend. What he does is he takes this magic creation, turns it into a script. And the script is a little bit longer, but here is the alchemy. This is where he's creating the magic. And we can see here, it's actually putting in, we can see the %s off to the bottom right, sort of over here. That's where it's putting in the random device identifier. On top of that, another cool trick. He's changing the plan to platinum. Huh, interesting. So if we take a look back at the original rules here, you see if you've got a platinum status, you get 2.5 times as much, right? You get 2 times as many points. All right, cool. And again, this was not designed to be some sort of big giant production server. It was just some people, they whipped it together for fun. So, and they didn't want to track the information you were doing on the device too much. So it would just send this packet over, and it didn't have a great way to validate, again, because they had the privacy concerns and such. So changed to Platinum. Awesome. So let's take a look here. So what we've got now is we can install a new device and get 10 points. In that same request here, we can send in that it's a new device. We can send it's mapping a network, it's cracking a password, it's snipped a URL, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can send that all in. Nice gifts here. Oh yeah, by the way, the presentation I put on Dropbox does not have these last bunch of slides. I will add those in. Give me a little bit. I forgot to upload that. My bad. The crack password piece here was broken. You couldn't get it to crack a password. It wouldn't work. So ironically, by cheating, right, by playing the game a little bit differently, we were able to crack a password. And because you could put this all in one payload, you could get 10 plus 5 plus 20 plus 1 plus 1 plus 5 plus 100. You get 142 points per request, multiplied by 2.5 to 355 points per request. Cool. So now we are back to the race, right? Like Tim Tomes, we're both Tims, right? And we are back to the race. And we're just going faster and faster and faster and putting it on more systems. And he originally had given me the code, and then, you know, like we've been a little bit more cagey as things going on. Like, hey, I see you're going faster. How did you optimize it? And you're like, oh yeah, well, do you want to talk in about hour and a half? And quick look at the math, maybe an hour and 5 minutes is what it takes to pass the other person. So we got a little bit cagier and stuff. And then, fortunately, I had the bright idea that with HTTP, what we were doing inside of our script, we were doing establishing the connection, SYN, SYNAC, ACK, send the data, tear down, SYN, SYNAC, ACK, data, tear down. And we're doing this over and over and over again. I was lucky enough to remember that with HTTP, we can keep the session alive. So I can say SYN, SYNAC, ACK, and then and I don't have the overhead of that SYN, SYNAC, ACK teardown. And just started screaming past him. And I blow past him, and he's like, whoa, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, let's talk tomorrow. I'm really busy. So we eventually talked. I'm like, Tim, I really want to go to Black Hat, man. He's like, oh. And at this point in my head, he's like, oh, I'm already going to Black Hat. I already have a ticket. You can have it. So many sleepless nights there. All right, so to sort of wrap up the story. So here was the leaderboard here at the bottom. And I feel kind of bad because he's like Oz is running around and like, Dad, can I borrow your phone? He installs the app. Mom, can I borrow your phone? Puts on the app. Yo, sister, can I have your phone? And it's all these phones. And there's all these other people, probably like I think Christy Priory figured out some of the replays stuff and took on kind of an early lead there. And then Holmes and I kind of went crazy with it. We did some math, and I think we were supposed to have about 17 billion points by the end if we let it run. So we kind of pulled that back. Now, I use that as an example. It's kind of a fun story, and it's a nice story that I can talk about. But it was dead simple, right? That initial surge of points for this thing that got me a trip to Las Vegas was just dead simple replay. Taking the existing data and just sending it over and over again. There was nothing fancy we had to do with manipulating it. I didn't have to understand what was going on inside the application. I didn't have to understand the protocol. Nothing. Just dead simple replay. right? And then after that, it took a little bit extra work, but I'm not that good at least I wasn't then. I wasn't very good at app reversing. I just opened up a tool, clicked the search, and I frankly guessed on that function, and it just happened to work, right? Don't be afraid to take a guess. Now, don't get too far in that rabbit hole with your guess, but sometimes it's going to work. Don't let that perfection be the enemy of good, right? Try that simple stuff. Don't be afraid to be wrong. I heard this. I forgot who told me this, and maybe it's a famous quote, and I just never heard it or don't remember it. But having that experience and confidence also includes the confidence to say, I don't know, and I'm wrong, right? Until you get to that sort of peak level, and you can't say that I don't know or I'm wrong, you're not there. Not that I'm special in any way, shape, or form. I'm just fortunate enough to realize how little that I know, and frankly, how freeing it is to say I don't know, because people frankly give you a lot more respect. I was talking to a Strand, and he was talking about one of the people that works for him. I'll give the shout out. Kelsey is wicked smart. And if you meet her, she's kind of an unassuming, just looking person, but she's dangerous. But just super out there, be willing to say, hey, you know what, I don't know. And there was somebody else that she was working with, no longer there, overconfident, unwilling to say, I don't know, right? It's so valuable to be able to say, I don't know, right? And at the same time, learn from new people. The new people are going to have a different perspective, right? Which is good, right? You've seen this over and over and over again, and you're ingrained in this is how it's going to happen. This is the path. That was me with that MFA thing with Mike, right? Mike is by no means a noob in any way, shape, or form, but Mike, this is the process. Why would I skip that step? I'm like, oh, of course, right? And it just worked like crazy. Try that simple stuff. Don't be afraid. And one of the things that we as people, as we grow in security, we like to tell people, like, this is the way things work. This is how I've done things. Shut up and listen, right? There is no better way to squash new people in an industry than tell them over and over and over again, this is how I did it. This is how I would have done it. This is a better way to do it. Shut up and listen. Maybe sometimes there is a better way. Cool. Keep your mouth shut sometimes. Let these people have those wins. I remember my first gig out of college, I had the worst manager that I had in my entire life. And every time I would come in with excitement on something cool that I had done, and he told me a better way to do it every single time almost. And it was just soul crushing because I'm like, I'm excited about doing something awesome with this machinery. And here's a different way we could have done the same sort of thing. Like, the job was done, and now I wasn't excited about it anymore. I didn't want to go show off to the boss, the kind of thing. Let people have that excitement. Enjoy it with them, right? And sort of related to that, so that was sort of a call to action for the people who are more experienced, but also to the people who are less experienced, teach others. You have a perspective that is different than mine. You have a story that is different than mine. These hacks, none of them are advanced. Nothing we did in this entire presentation is advanced. They make what I would hope to think is an interesting story. Get out there. Go to your local conferences. There's a ton of virtual conferences out there. Present. And then the nice thing is with the virtual conferences, you don't have to see people. You can just talk into the wall like I'm doing right now. I'm actually talking to myself. There's me talking to myself, which is really weird and really weird on my ego. I don't know what to do. But get out there and teach others, right? Do a lunch and learn at your work and say, hey, cool, here's this thing that I've worked on. Go to your local security conferences when you have them, or do it virtual. Again, just turn off everybody else, talk to them, show them the different things. You can actually even take other people's ideas and concepts, like a blog post that you read. Again, give me your spin on it. Tell it why it's important to you, how you do it different. I go to Kerber roasting talks all of the time. all the time. And frankly, it's not not entirely. No, it's not meant to be sort of a self-indulgent sort of thing. But I want to know, like, what are people doing different? How can I explain this better? Because I sometimes have difficulty explaining this, and get out there and teach some of the other people.